So I have a question for you. What were you doing when you were 8 years old? Now, most of us at 8 years old, in school, enjoying life, making friendships. That's generally what most of us were doing at 8 years old. The story today is about a guy called Josiah. And what Josiah was doing at 8 years old was he was made, in the Bible, was made king of Judah. At 8 years old, he was made king, the ruler of the whole of Judah. You see, in the Bible, we find that after King David, you know him, King Solomon, Israel spiraled out of control. They had a number of kings who, some of them followed God, some of them didn't. And what happened is there was this horrible cycle of they worshipped the wrong gods, then they were destroyed, then they said, God, we need another king. And maybe some of the kings were good and some of them weren't good. But what we have is Josiah is chosen after a pretty poor king before him. He was chosen at 8. He was thrust right into it. At 8 years old, the king, the ruler of everyone. He didn't choose it. But what Josiah was known for in the Bible, in 2 Kings, he was known for restoring the house of the Lord, for destroying all those false gods, for all the idols that in Judah, the people of God, they were worshipping all these idols. He reinstated worship in Judah. He said that, no, we're going to worship God. And whenever the house of the Lord was being restored, he came across the Old Testament, the books of the law that would have been written at the time. And you see, this story of Josiah, it's so important because all the other kings, it says what age they were, what they did, what they accomplished. But for Josiah, it says he was 8 years old. And this story about Josiah, starting at 8, then he was 16 when he did something else amazing, then he was in his 20s. It's all about the fact that God can do the impossible in your life. Josiah, when he kept the Bible, the word of the Lord, in his heart, there was no limit to what God can do. No limit to what God was able to do in his life. And it's exactly the same with you. When you worship the Lord and you don't follow these other gods, you don't follow these other ways, when you put God in the center of your life, when you put the Bible in your heart, there will be no limit of what he can do. You see, Josiah started at 8, but what he was remembered for was he changed the way he lived and the way other people lived. He is remembered as a man who followed all of God's ways. It talks about him in 2 Kings, chapter 23, verse 25. It says, neither before nor after Josiah was there a king like him who turned to the Lord as he did with all of his heart, with all of his soul, and with all of his strength, in accordance with the law of Moses. So it says there was nobody like him before or after who turned with everything they had to live for God. Now, you may be asking the question, why is this important? Why is this in the Bible? The story of Josiah is that if God can choose Josiah at 8 years old, he can choose you to work through you. Do not doubt for a second that God can work in your life. Even if you're young or you're weak or you feel like you do not have enough. This is the story of Josiah, and it says, the Bible specifically says, at 8 years old. And that's there so that you can look at that and go, God doesn't count me out if I'm young. God doesn't count me out if I'm still in school. God doesn't count me out if I don't think I'm good enough, or I don't think I'm old enough, or smart enough, or strong enough. It doesn't matter your age. And this is what God says to you. The story of Josiah is when you keep his word in your heart, it won't matter what age you are. He will use you to bless other people and change how you see him. And as you change how you live, people around you will change. 1 Timothy 4 verse 12 says, do not let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct. That's how you behave, in your love, in faith, and in purity. I want to challenge you and encourage you. It is not too early for you to know Jesus and for him to shape your life. When you keep the word of God close to you, you will experience the fullness of God and your life will be transformed. And this is the story of Josiah.